Here's a tweet from Shawnee Silver. Guys, Whitney Cummings' new special is extremely funny and unexpectedly informative. This is how I'm smiling at cat callers from here on out. There you go. And Whitney Cummings joins me now. Welcome. That is the smile. That is the smile for all street harassers everywhere.
I gotta tell you what, I started doing jokes about that, and I can't believe how many women were just like, like they would scream, like, thank you for saying something. Because it's the kind of harassment where a lot of us don't have time to even do.
No, not at all.
And you become desensitized and you're just like, whatever, you know, so I wanted to write about it.
Or you don't even realize initially, or like it takes a minute to realize this is actually harassment, right?
I have other tactics though, except because New York is different than LA. People just yell at you as you walk down the street. My new favorite thing to do is when someone catcalls you, pretend you didn't hear them and ask them to repeat it. Just be like, I'm so sorry, I didn't hear you. What was that?
That's a good one.
It's like that's a good way to just shame them. And they're like, I said you have a nice... it's fine, never mind. And you're like, okay, I heard you.
I'm going to do that one. Something that I've taken to doing is I take pictures of the men who street harass me.
That's good.
Because it can be really disarming if you're like, oh, hey, wait, can I take a picture of you? Because then they're like, wait, either a little bit embarrassed or they're actually just not ashamed at all. And they're like, yeah, sure, like I'll be in your picture. Or they're driving a truck.
Like, oh, that worked.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Now she wants to go public with our relationship.
Which that like destroys my heart even more. Or like they're driving a vehicle with their employer's name on it. And I can be like, I'm going to take a picture of you and then report you to your workplace.
Hey, Toys R Us. Maybe get a handle on your employer. I also had a guy one time yell at me downtown in LA, and he went, I want to know what your body can do. And I was like, all right. You know, and I just told him, like, that was the best way to feel about it. I was like, it can make a person, which rips through my uterus at some point, and it comes out on like a bloody cord. And sometimes poo-poo comes out at the same time. You just actually take catcalling very literally, I think.
Well, you know, this is a big thing that you talk about in the new special. And you also talk about talking to the men in your life about harassment. What advice would you give someone who's trying to have a conversation with the men in their life about this?
I think for me, I've learned that like yelling at someone, it doesn't work. People at 36 years old, I finally realized that they don't like it. I try to just first ask questions. I'm like, what's confusing to you? And, you know, because I think when you're like, well, you're stupid and all men, I think as soon as you say all men or all women, I think people shut down because it's just like, you know, a generalization that's not like a sophisticated conversation. So I first try to just ask questions to my guy friends. Like, what are you confused about? Like, why are you angry? Why do you feel lost about this? You know, because I think that a lot of my guy friends are very confused. Like, can I hug a woman at work? Can I say they have on a nice dress? And it's like, first of all, you don't know what a dress is. Half the time the guy compliments me on my dress, I'm usually wearing pants.
Like, that's not a dress.
Yeah, you don't know anything about fashion, so just we don't care about your opinions about it. You know, like, so just I think gently and with humor. So that's why I wanted to make this special about harassment, because I think tweeting about it angrily, that just causes, you know, I wanted to levity.
Of course.
We have to be able to find humor in everything, and I think that's when a lot of guys are like, oh, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, well, something that is hilarious is Bear Claw, which is your exact replica sex robot. She comes on stage with you.
What do you make of that?
What do I make of that? I mean, I have to say that I am someone who I think everybody should be able to make their own choices in life and like whatever is fun and humorous to them. And I think like if you are, I'm very sex positive. I think, you know, if you're not hurting anyone, like you live your life, you know, live your life. So I found Bear Claw personally very, very, very creepy. She's the movements that she makes when she's just like, you know,
it'd be creepy if you didn't think she was creepy, I think. So I think I just kind of got to the point where I was like, I've done 3 specials. It's so hard to surprise anyone anymore. It's so hard to shock anyone. Like, our headlines have desensitized us. We've seen everything. I think comedians now, we're competing with YouTube and like pandas dancing to Beyonce. It's like being an entertainer now, it's just the bar is so high for how to surprise people. And so and like you said, I'm kind of just trying to entertain myself at this point. And I was like, this is the weirdest thing.
So weird. So where is Bear Claw now?
Currently she's at Howard Stern. She's living there for the week. So God only knows.
I mean, truly.
Truly. So rest in peace, Bear Claw. She's with me doing press this week.
Okay, got it. How did you become pro sex robot?
I just started doing research about it. And I'm not like pro, like everyone get one. We have yet to know what the aftermath, this could be bad, it could be disaster, it could be good, it could be healing. You know, I got really into the chat rooms of guys that owned these sex dolls. And I was just surprised by a lot of these guys were handicapped or had ED and they wanted to practice so they could be better for women. And, you know, so I found a lot of surprising answers to my questions. And look, it's already, porn is the worst thing. And that everyone wants to, I feel like, blame and scapegoat because they don't want to look at what's actually happening. I had watched this talk by Gail Dines about how much havoc porn is wreaking on our brains. And so I started really getting into that. And then there's, the sex robots were just like, at least there aren't real women being, I'm not looking at women like that are bruised in porn, I find porn really upsetting, so I don't know. I just thought it would be a funny experiment and I don't fully endorse it or fully condemn it. This is happening, so let's just start talking about it.
There's so much more nuance that I feel like we need with all of these things. So you recently tweeted, also, I miss the days when having different opinions meant you were having an interesting conversation. How do you personally distinguish between having a conversation with someone with opposing views versus giving a platform to bad faith arguments?
I think when I tweeted that, and I'm so surprised when a tweet goes crazy because I'm like, I guess everyone's going through this. I must have touched a raw nerve because I just found that there's this new thing where if you don't agree with someone and someone gets their feelings hurt, like someone will pay. Like someone has to apologize if someone's feelings got hurt. And I don't know. I love disagreeing with people. I love being around people that have different opinions than me. But I think, 2 years ago, obviously things got so tense that the stakes are so high in terms of people's opinions. But, I just found it fascinating that it used to be like, oh, we disagree. We can still be friends. Like we don't have the same opinion about something. We can still have a conversation without somebody storming off and demanding an apology, So I think for me, I'm not really super engaged with Twitter. It scares me. So, I never endorse anything that's phobic or that's not okay. You have to go. But I just think in terms of opinions about things, we should be able to have different ones.
Well, something that you said recently when you were talking about your time on Roseanne and when you left Roseanne was that you had hoped that show would lead to interesting conversations. Is there anything out there now, any shows that are out there that you feel like are doing that?
Yeah, I really like this show called Adam Ruins Everything. He sort of talks about all the corruption that's amongst us everywhere all the time, which I really appreciate. Joe Rogan, I think, does a really good job of having people on that he doesn't always agree with or, I try to watch that. And I'm podcasts, I think, mostly is Sam Harris and Ben Carlin. And, I try to get as much of that as I can into my brain.
Are there any kinds of conversations that you would like to see or hear that you haven't been hearing, especially about this political moment that we're in?
That's a really good I feel like a lot of conversation. I think for me, it's not that we need more conversation. I think we need more conversation from qualified people that know what they're talking about.
What a concept. So you don't have to have an opinion on something you don't know about.
That's kind of what I'm realizing. It's just sort of like everybody who's fighting has no idea what they're talking about. And so I'm very I don't know. I'm not educated on that topic. I would like to hear from someone who is. And I'm hearing a lot of people yelling at each other who I'm like, what makes you qualified to have an opinion on this? Right. So I think it's more we need more microphones. We need the right people to have them.
The right people to have the microphones. Yeah. Well, I want to also talk about a pilot that you're working on with Amazon. It's called Good People. And it's about kind of intergenerational issues and feminism. And so what kind of stories did you want to highlight with that?
I was going to colleges and doing stand-up, and I was just hearing about all these predicaments that they had. There was a trans boy who wanted to play on the football team, and the testosterone was, they were counting that as doping technically, and a white girl had dreadlocks, and a bunch of people were upset, and there was appropriation on Columbus Day. Columbus Day was protest, and I just found myself being like, this is so fascinating. So much stuff is going on. So many important conversations are being had. And who is the poor bastard who has to deal with all this? Because there's someone whose job is to decide if you can wear a MAGA hat or whatever it is. And so I immediately pictured Lisa Kudrow having to deal with it. And I was like, oh my God, I have to make that. And Lee Daniels is a friend of mine, and we had been looking for something to work on together. And he's brave and brazen and fearless, and way more so than myself. So I was like, I think I need someone who's even more fearless than I am to be able to, you know, earn going into some of these areas. So we decided to make this show about an ombudsman's office, which is basically like the HR office of a college campus. And what do you do when a professor is dating a student, and it's not technically illegal, but it's kind of creepy. And, you know, so it's about, you know, 3 generations of women that all have also differing opinions on some of these things. It was news to me when I went on tour and I started talking about sexual harassment one time, and this one woman, older woman, just yelled out at me. I was like talking about some guy that had smacked my ass at work, and she just went, "Take the compliment and move on." And I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Not everyone thinks like me.
No, yeah.
That's so weird. And I can't judge her point of view, but I can't relate to it. And I really wanted to explore the different opinions within, you know, feminism and just women right now, because I think there's a very much like one person speaks for everyone is sort of how it feels sometimes. So I wanted to.
We are not a monolith. What a notion.
One does not represent all.
Yeah.
And there's women I disagree with.
Yeah,
and
of
that's
course.
interesting. And I would love to see that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Thanks,
It's great to
Alex.
talk to you. And Whitney Cummings' latest special, Can I Touch It?, is streaming on Netflix now. Up next, Stephanie speaks with author Hannah Ornstein about her book, Love at First Like.